Hello, Mr. Paul here, back with another theory video. And in this one I want to discuss minor scales. So hopefully you've seen the last one I did that goes over major scales pretty in depth there, because that's going to help you figure this stuff out. But just to give you a taste, we had our C major scale last time, or really any major scale should sound like this. And we say major kind of sounds a little lighter, a little happier, versus a minor scale, which is a little more darker. More darker? It's just darker. It's a little more serious. And of course, these are really cookie cutter definitions. So does major always sound happy? Not necessarily. Does minor always sound sad? Not necessarily. It's just like a different mode of these scales, okay? So in the last video, we talked about how our major scales are based on a step pattern, right? So any major scale, so say I started on E, should be a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Then you put it all together. And there you go, you get an E major scale. So if that's confusing to you, go check out the last one. But for this one, we're gonna start on A. And I'm claiming that's a minor scale, it is. And in this case, it is a natural minor scale. So unlike the major scale, our minor scale has a couple flavors, 3 to be precise. So there's natural minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor. All right, so in this one, I'm gonna focus on natural minor, and then I'll make another video going over the variations. So let's just figure out a step pattern here. So A to B, that's a whole step. B to C is a half step. C to D is a whole step. Oops, I don't know why I put a C there. Just thinking H for half step. See, A to B is a whole step. B to C is a half step. C to D is a whole step. D to E is a whole step. E to F is half. F to G is whole. Then G getting back to A is whole. Okay. So we get a new formula here. It's still all whole and half steps. It's just kind of rearranged a little different than our major scale. So if you remember, our major was whole, whole, half, whole, half. This is whole, half, whole, half, whole. Ugh, that's a lot to keep track of, right? But it is true that if I take this pattern and apply it anywhere else on the keyboard, I will get a minor natural scale. So let me try it on E since I use it as my major example. So for E, I'll go whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. So that should sound a lot like if I just go A to A white keys there, all right? So that is the really cookie cutter way of just knowing the construction or your step pattern for a minor scale. So let's think about some other ways of thinking of this. You might have noticed when I did A to A, it's all white keys. Well, hey, C to C is also just all white keys. So what we would say is that A is the relative minor to C. They have the same key signature, if you will, which in this case is no sharps or flats. All right? So if I kind of extend the scale out backwards a little bit, or no, I'll go this way. A, B, C. And let's just keep this moving here. A to B is a whole step. Then B to C is a half step. Well, if we're thinking major scale, oh, well, there's that old pattern we know. Whole, half, whole, half. So a good way of thinking of this is like 2 octaves or more, like one big strip of notes. If you just think A to A or 1 octave, yeah, you get that pattern, but you're not seeing the bigger overarching pattern of just how these whole and half steps work and how these scales relate to each other, right? So we'd say A minor and C major are related, and that's kind of how they're related. So for example, if I pick another scale, I'll pick D major. I can kind of play the same game. What's the minor scale that's related to that or uses the same key signature? Well, let's think about this. In my C major scale, if C is my root note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My 6th note is the one that my relative minor starts on, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I just happen to start my C scale on my 6th note, which is A, I'll get my relative minor, which is A minor. So let's try this with D major, all right? So I'll just erase this, and I'm gonna write a D major scale here. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So now what I want to do is I want to start this scale on the 6th scale degree, and then I'm going to keep the same key signature, aka the same sharps and flats. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so B is the 6th. So I'm going to go ahead and write my letters out first. B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. All right, now I'm gonna put these sharps back in. So what I have C sharp and F sharp. Let's see what this sounds like. So here's D major. Now this should be B natural minor. Okay, does that sound like the A natural? It does, all right? So, and then if we do our step patterns, it'll be just like the A natural minor. So just like we were kind of figuring out C major scale and relating all our other major scales to that, just because it's so easy to see C major, the same idea would be to figure out A minor and really understand that, then apply all your minor scales to that, the step patterns and all that. One last thing I wanted to point out with these scales is the parallel minors and another way of thinking of this. So if we know A major, and I'll write that out, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. It has 3 sharps. So Father Charles goes. I can't remember if I explained that Father Charles goes down and ends battle thing in another video, but maybe I better do that too. But for the purposes of this video, we have 3 sharps. C sharp, F sharp, and G sharp, and that gives us A major. Whole half, whole half, right? We might notice A minor is very similar. I mean, it's the same notes. We just got rid of all the sharps. And there's A minor down there. So if I could take this A major scale and flat my 3rd, 6th, and 7th scale degree, I end up with this A minor. Well, that means this is probably true of every other major scale as well, because that's just kind of how music theory works. So let's try this on a different scale. So let's go D major again. Or no. Let's go D major. D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Okay, so if you know your major scales pretty well, we know that there needs to be an F sharp and a C sharp in here. Right? So if I'm gonna flat my 3rd scale degree, that would be this one, then I need to flat 6 and 7. So let's try this. D, E, well, F sharp flatted is just F, G, A. If I flat B, I get B flat. Then C sharp, if I flat that, I just get a C. Then I'm back to D. So let's see if this works. Does it sound like A? It does. So this rule always works too. You can take any major scale and get its parallel minor by flatting your 3rd, 6th, and 7th scale degree. That's already a lot to take in. And like I said, there's some variations on these too that I'm going to get into more in another video. So take some time unpacking these minor scales, kind of try to figure out how they relate to the major scales, and I think that's a better way of thinking of it. And then there's even other scales outside of major and minor we can discuss in another video. But if you know your major scales like the back of your hand, you could figure out just about any other scale, all right? So we have your relative minor, which is the same key signature. So C has its relative minor A. But then we have our parallel minor, which starts on the same note, but we need to flat our 3rd, 6th, and 7th. 1, 2, flat to 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, octave. All right, so I'm gonna cut this one off here, then I'll get into our harmonic and melodic minor scales in the next video. Hopefully this helps. You're gonna have to play with these minor scales a little bit to really understand them. See you on the next one.